Eddie Malone knew the docks like the back of his hand, but nothing prepared him for the day he uncovered the secret tunnels flooding Britain with cocaine. Sarah Collins, a customs officer caught between duty and fear, found herself powerless against a cartel that controlled more than just shipments. It controlled lives. Their worlds would collide in a dangerous game of trust and betrayal, where every move could mean survival or death. The sun was just beginning to rise over one of the UK's busiest ports, casting a pale light on rows upon rows of shipping containers. To most people, it was just another ordinary day. Trucks rolled in and out, workers moved efficiently, and cranes lifted massive crates into place. But beneath this calm surface, something far more dangerous was happening. Hidden inside these containers was a secret world of drugs, violence, and deception. A world that few outsiders ever saw or understood. The informant, once a key player in this shadowy game, remembers how it all began for him here, at the docks. The port seemed like a perfect cover. Thousands of containers passed through every day, making it easy to hide illegal goods among the innocent cargo. What no one realized was how the cartel had taken control of these gateways, turning the port into a major hub for cocaine smuggling into Britain. At first, the informant saw the docks as just another job, a way to make money without drawing attention. But soon he learned that what appeared normal on the outside was anything but. Cartel members worked quietly, using complex tactics to move cocaine across borders. They concealed the drugs beneath crates of bananas, hidden inside machines, and even inside frozen fish. The containers looked harmless, but inside, tons of cocaine were being smuggled in day after day. The scale was shocking. The informant recalls how cocaine shipments arrived in massive quantities, hidden so cleverly that even some customs officers were fooled. It was clear the cartel had allies at the port, people who accepted bribes or turned a blind eye, allowing the flow to continue uninterrupted. The stakes were high. Control of the port meant power, money, and influence. Rival gangs watched closely, waiting for any sign of weakness. The informant knew that behind every shipment was a dangerous game of trust and betrayal. One wrong move could mean violence, even death. Despite the risk, the cocaine kept coming, flooding streets from London to Manchester. Ordinary people, unaware of the violence behind the scenes, became victims of addiction and crime. For the informant, this pace was the starting point of a dark journey, a world where nothing was as it seemed, and danger lurked in every shadow. The docks weren't just a place for goods to arrive. They were the front line of a hidden war. The informant quickly discovered that the cocaine smuggling operation was not just about moving drugs from one place to another. It was a carefully built network, a complex machine where every part had to work perfectly for the whole system to succeed. This network stretched far beyond the docks, reaching into offices, homes, and even law enforcement agencies. It was a world where connections meant everything, and trust was a rare commodity. The cartel had developed a system that involved people from all walks of life: customs officials, dock workers, truck drivers, and even small business owners, all playing their part. Without their cooperation, smuggling such large quantities of cocaine would have been impossible. Bribery was the glue that held the network together. The informant explained how money changed hands quietly and regularly. Officials who were supposed to stop illegal shipments looked the other way, and workers on the docks ensured that certain containers passed without inspection. It wasn't just about money, it was also about fear. Those who refused to cooperate faced threats to their families or worse. The cartel's influence was like a shadow cast over the port, touching every corner. No one was safe, and the risk of being caught or hurt kept most people silent. The informant remembered how some people were trapped by their own choices, forced deeper into the cartel's world simply because there was no way out. The network's power extended beyond just moving drugs. It controlled the timing of shipments, the routes trucks took, and even how the cocaine was distributed once it reached the streets. The informant described how sophisticated the operation was. No detail was left to chance. They used encrypted phones, secret meeting places, and coded language to avoid detection. Every step was planned with precision to stay one step ahead of the police. What made the network so dangerous was its ability to adapt quickly. When one part was exposed or shut down, another sprang up to replace it, keeping the flow of cocaine steady. For the informant, seeing this network in action was both terrifying and eye-opening. It showed him just how deeply organized crime could reach into everyday life, hidden beneath the surface of what seemed like normal business. The cartel wasn't just a group of criminals, it was a hidden force with power, money, and influence that spread far beyond the docks. This network was the true heart of the operation. The invisible engine driving cocaine into the UK, and breaking it apart would prove to be one of the biggest challenges the country had ever faced. The cartel's ability to hide cocaine inside ordinary shipments was nothing short of genius. The informant recalls how their methods constantly evolved, designed to outsmart law enforcement and avoid detection. At first, they used simple tricks, hiding drugs in fruit crates or inside furniture shipments. But soon those methods became too risky as authorities grew more alert. So, the cartel began inventing increasingly creative ways to conceal their cargo, turning everyday items into secret containers for kilograms of cocaine. One of the most surprising tactics involved frozen fish. The informant described how large shipments of frozen seafood arrived at the ports with cocaine hidden inside the blocks of ice, or stuffed within the fish themselves. The cold temperatures slowed any scent and made scanning technology less effective. Inspectors saw only fish and ice, never suspecting the dangerous payload beneath. In other cases, hollow steel rods were shipped as construction materials, with cocaine powder packed tightly inside, sealed so perfectly that even experienced customs officers found it nearly impossible to detect. The cartel also took advantage of the sheer volume of shipments passing through the ports daily. Containers arrived in such numbers that customs had limited time and resources to inspect everything thoroughly. The informant explained that smugglers often relied on timing, sending cocaine during the busiest periods when inspections were rushed or skipped entirely. They used forged paperwork and fake company names to make shipments appear legitimate. Each container had a story, a reason why it should pass quickly, avoiding unwanted attention. Despite the advanced methods, there were risks. Every successful shipment raised the stakes. If even one container was discovered, it could lead to arrests and disrupt the entire network. The informant revealed how the cartel constantly tested new hiding spots and adjusted their techniques to stay ahead. They observed security camera patterns, learned when inspections were lighter, and switched routes as needed. It was a dangerous game of cat and mouse, with the cartel always trying to be one step ahead of law enforcement. What made these tactics so chilling was how invisible they were to the outside world. To the average person, those containers were just ordinary goods arriving at the port. Few imagined that inside them lay tons of cocaine destined for the streets. The informant's story revealed a hidden war happening right under the public's nose, where simple objects became deadly disguises, and nothing was ever truly what it seemed. The calm surface of the drug trade masked a violent undercurrent that few outsiders ever saw. The informant knew all too well how the cartel's fight for control turned the streets and ports into battlegrounds. When one group tried to dominate the cocaine market, rival gangs would not back down without a fight. Turf wars erupted with brutal intensity, marked by shootings, beatings, and sometimes even murders. These violent clashes were not random acts. They were calculated moves in a dangerous game for power and money. The informant recalls how these battles changed neighborhoods overnight, leaving fear and destruction in their wake. The violence wasn't limited to those involved in the trade. Innocent bystanders often found themselves caught in the crossfire. Families walking home, children playing nearby, shop owners. None were truly safe when gangs decided to settle scores. The informant describes the heavy weight of guilt and fear that hung over the community as violence escalated. People learned to avoid certain streets and stay indoors after dark. The cartel's fight for supremacy spilled far beyond the docks and warehouses, touching every part of daily life. What surprised the informant most was how quickly alliances shifted. Friends became enemies in a blink, and betrayals were common. Trust was fragile, and loyalty was bought or forced with threats. The fear of being double-crossed kept many members on edge, always watching their backs. The cartel's leaders knew that a moment of weakness could cost them everything, so they maintained control through intimidation and ruthless punishment. Despite the danger, the cartel continued pushing harder. Each violent clash was a signal that the stakes were rising. The informant recalls moments when entire blocks were shut down by police after shootings, and how those events sent shockwaves through the criminal world. But for every arrest or death, another gang member stepped up, ready to fill the gap. The cycle of violence seemed endless. For the informant, witnessing this brutality was a turning point. It showed the real cost of the cocaine trade, not just in money, but in lives destroyed and communities torn apart. The violence was a harsh reminder that the drug war was not just about drugs. It was about control, survival, and the price people paid when power was at stake. What began as a secret operation at the docks had grown into a deadly conflict, threatening the safety of entire cities. Years of living in the shadows had taken their toll on the informant. Loyalty to the cartel meant constantly looking over his shoulder, trusting few, and accepting a life filled with danger and fear. Yet walking away was never simple. The cartel didn't just deal in drugs, it dealt in silence and obedience. Leaving meant exposing secrets that could bring down powerful people, and that put a target on his back. The informant remembers the moment when everything changed. The arrest of a key cartel leader that shook the entire operation to its core. This arrest wasn't just a setback. It was a signal that the walls were closing in. The cartel had grown confident over the years, believing their network was untouchable, but law enforcement, armed with intelligence and determination, had finally found a way inside. The informant realized that the risks of staying silent were greater than the dangers of speaking out. Deciding to cooperate with the authorities was both terrifying and necessary. He knew that giving up the cartel's secrets meant risking retaliation, but it was also his chance at redemption, a way to break free from a world he no longer wanted to be part of. The decision wasn't easy. The informant spent long nights weighing the consequences, aware that trust was scarce and betrayal common. His cooperation could bring justice, but it could also destroy lives, including his own. Despite the fear, he chose to share what he knew, details about smuggling routes, hidden methods, corrupt officials, and violent conflicts. His information became a key piece in the fight against the cartel, exposing the deep corruption and the vast reach of the network. This turning point marked the beginning of a new chapter, both for the informant and the investigation. Authorities used his knowledge to plan raids and arrests, targeting the heart of the operation. But the informant's story was also one of survival. Turning informant meant living under constant threat, knowing the cartel's eyes were everywhere. It was a lonely path filled with uncertainty, but also hope. Hope that the drug trade could be disrupted and lives could be saved. For the informant, walking away was more than just leaving crime behind. It was a fight for a future free from fear, a chance to make amends for the past, and a warning to others caught in the cartel's grip. This chapter of his life was marked by courage in the face of danger, and a powerful reminder that even the darkest stories can lead to a chance for change. Once the informant made the difficult decision to cooperate, the reality of what lay ahead hit him hard. He found himself inside cold, stark interrogation rooms where every word was weighed and every detail scrutinized. The police officers were determined to get the truth, but trust was not easily given or earned. The informant recalls the endless hours of questioning, sometimes stretching late into the night, pushing him to the edge. He knew that sharing secrets meant putting himself at great risk, but staying silent was no longer an option. The process was frustrating and exhausting, but necessary to build a strong case against the cartel leaders. Isolation became another burden. The informant could no longer live openly in the community. Every step outside was shadowed by paranoia, unsure if someone was watching or following him. He was moved to safe houses, his identity protected, but the loneliness was profound. The life he once knew was gone, replaced by a constant awareness of danger. Yet amid the fear and uncertainty, the informant found moments of hope. His cooperation began to shake the cartel's foundation. Arrests were made, shipments seized, and the network showed signs of strain. The risk he took was starting to pay off, proving that even one voice could make a difference. This chapter of his story reveals the hidden cost of turning informant, the mental toll, the fear, and the courage it takes to face both the criminals and the consequences. It is a raw, unfiltered look at what it means to choose truth over loyalty in a deadly world. With the informant's cooperation, law enforcement gained a valuable edge, but the battle against the cartel was far from over. The smugglers were quick to adapt, constantly finding new ways to move cocaine past security and keep the flow alive. The informant watched how the cartel's methods grew more sophisticated, pushing the boundaries of what anyone thought possible. It became clear that catching one shipment was only a small victory in a much larger and ongoing war. One of the most alarming developments was the use of small drones. The cartel started experimenting with flying tiny, unmanned aircraft to transport drugs over fences and checkpoints, avoiding traditional inspections altogether. These drones could carry packages of cocaine into places previously considered secure, bypassing the layers of security at ports and border crossings. The informant described how this innovation took smugglers into new territory, forcing authorities to rethink their strategies completely. The cartel also expanded underground. Literally, secret tunnels were dug beneath warehouses and docks, allowing cocaine to be moved unseen beneath the surface. These tunnels connected hidden storage areas with waiting vehicles, making it nearly impossible for police to detect shipments in transit. The informant revealed that these tunnels were built with engineering precision, sometimes stretching for hundreds of meters and equipped with lighting and ventilation, proving the cartel's serious investment in staying ahead. Fake companies and front businesses also played a key role in the cartel's evolving playbook. These firms appeared legitimate on paper, shipping goods overseas only to bring them back with cocaine hidden inside. The informant explained how this tactic exploited international trade rules and customs procedures, making the drugs look like normal cargo. The cartel's control over paperwork and logistics made this method highly effective, creating a web of deception that was difficult to unravel. Throughout these changes, the cartel remained relentless. They constantly tested the limits of law enforcement, pushing through new routes, changing shipment patterns, and using encrypted communication to stay connected. The informant knew that each time police intercepted a shipment, the cartel would immediately find another way. It was a dangerous game of cat and mouse, with no clear end in sight. This chapter reveals how the cartel's creativity and determination turned smuggling into a high-tech, well-organized operation. It showed the lengths criminals would go to maintain their grip on the drug trade, and the ongoing challenge facing those trying to stop them. The war against cocaine flooding the UK was far from over, and both sides were locked in a constant battle of innovation and survival. The deeper the informant went into the cartel's world, the more he realized that not all players fit the stereotype of street criminals or violent gangsters. Some of the cartel's most important figures wore suits, carried briefcases, and held respected positions in society. These hidden faces operated quietly, but wielded immense power behind the scenes. The informant uncovered how wealthy businessmen, politicians, and even community leaders secretly supported or protected the operation, blurring the lines between legality and crime. Money was at the core of this hidden network. The cartel used large sums to buy influence and loyalty, making it difficult to distinguish friend from foe. The informant described how certain businessmen set up front companies and fake accounts to launder cocaine profits, disguising illegal money as legitimate business income. These companies often appeared perfectly normal: import-export firms, real estate agencies, or logistics businesses. But their true purpose was to funnel millions in dirty money through the legal economy. Political connections added another layer of protection. Some officials were bribed or blackmailed to look the other way, allowing shipments to pass unchecked or investigations to stall. The informant revealed that these alliances were carefully cultivated over years, creating a web of protection that made the cartel almost untouchable. In some cases, those in power used their influence to silence rivals or interfere with law enforcement efforts, ensuring the cartel's operations could continue without disruption. What shocked the informant most was how deeply embedded these hidden faces were in everyday life. People who attended community events, donated to charities, or appeared as respected leaders were often secretly funding or directing criminal activities. This dual life allowed the cartel to operate under a veil of respectability, hiding in plain sight while continuing their deadly business. The informant's revelations exposed a dangerous truth. The cartel's reach was far wider than most people imagined. It wasn't just a group of criminals on the street. It was a complex organization with roots in legitimate society. This hidden network made fighting the cartel even more difficult, as law enforcement had to navigate not just violent gangs but also corruption at the highest levels. This chapter shows that crime can wear many faces. The real power behind the drug trade was often invisible, operating quietly in boardrooms and offices, while the violence played out on the streets. Understanding this hidden world was key to breaking the cartel's grip on the UK's ports and communities. The informant's decision to cooperate with law enforcement brought significant breakthroughs. Authorities were able to make numerous arrests, seizing large quantities of cocaine before they reached the streets. For a moment, it seemed like a major victory, a chance to dismantle the cartel's network and protect communities from the drug's devastating impact. But as the informant soon realized, the success was fragile and temporary. The drug trade was a hydra cut off one head, and two more would grow in its place. The arrests created a power vacuum that rival gangs and new leaders quickly moved to fill. The cartel was resilient, with deep roots in the ports and communities, and its influence was not easily erased. The informant watched how those left behind reorganized, learning from past mistakes and becoming even more secretive and ruthless. New routes opened, new hiding methods emerged, and the violence that had once died down flared up again. The drug trade adapted like a living thing, evolving to survive and thrive under pressure. Law enforcement faced enormous challenges in keeping up. Every success was met with new threats and obstacles. Corruption still lingered in some areas, and resources were limited. The informant understood that stopping cocaine from flooding into the UK was not a one-time battle, but an ongoing war. The cartel's ability to change tactics and rebuild quickly made the fight difficult and exhausting. Despite these setbacks, the informant found hope in the progress made. The arrest sent a clear message that crime wouldn't be tolerated and that cooperation could bring criminals to justice. Communities affected by violence and addiction began to see some relief, even if only temporary. The informant believed that breaking the cartel's hold required persistence and constant vigilance. This chapter reflects the complexity of fighting organized crime. It's not just about catching criminals, but understanding a system designed to survive and adapt. The informant's story reveals how difficult it is to win this war, and how each small victory can quickly be challenged by new threats. The battle against cocaine trafficking is ongoing, marked by fragile victories and relentless determination on both sides. Ultimately, this fragile victory serves as a reminder that the drug trade will continue to evolve. The war is far from over, and the fight to protect communities remains urgent and necessary. As the informant's story unfolded, it became clear that the war against cocaine trafficking was more than just a fight between criminals and police. It was a struggle that touched every level of society. The informant's journey showed how deep the cartel's roots went, how ordinary places like ports could hide extraordinary secrets, and how difficult it was to dismantle such a powerful network. But beyond the violence, the corruption and the danger, there was a human side to this story, people caught in the middle, trying to survive, change, or escape. After years of working with authorities, the informant found himself living a life far removed from the streets and warehouses he once knew. Protected by witness programs and hidden from those who wanted to silence him, he faced new challenges: loneliness, fear, and the constant need for caution. The freedom he gained came at a high price. The informant had to live with the memories of what he had seen and done, knowing that his decision to speak out might save others, but had also broken bonds that could never be repaired. He reflected on the countless lives affected by the cocaine flooding into the UK, the addicts whose futures were stolen, the families torn apart by violence, and the communities living in fear. His story was a warning and a call to action. It revealed the importance of vigilance, the need for stronger protections at the ports, and the crucial role of honest individuals willing to stand up against powerful criminals. The informant's testimony helped spark new investigations, reforms, and public awareness campaigns. His courage inspired others trapped in similar situations to come forward, proving that change was possible even in the darkest corners. But he also knew the fight was far from over. The cartel's ability to adapt meant that authorities and communities had to stay alert, working